The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Dylan J. Schlender presiding. Your eyes for the Honorable Judge Schlender.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of 1 Hour Photo versus Insomnia. 1 Hour Photo is a 2002 thriller that follows a disturbed photo clerk as his obsession with a local family grows. Insomnia is a 2002 crime thriller that follows a detective hunting a murderer in Alaska. And both movies feature Robin Williams. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, in civil cases like this, the counsel appointed to represent each film will present their case for why their client is the superior movie. And ultimately, the jury will render its verdict as to which film is better. This decision will hereby stand in all rankings and listicles from now on until the end of time, ad infinitum. Mr. Bouncin Bobby LePire, you are representing 1 Hour Photo. You may begin your opening statement.
I just want to address the court. I hate you guys for
Even Ryan
giving Skinamarink any kind of reward, and I cannot get over this. Just that's publicly on record.
All right, it is now officially in the record. Please proceed.
What we're dealing with here today are two brilliantly done thrillers from the same year. Roger Ebert even gave both of them 3.5 out of 4 stars. But 1 Hour Photo, was, while inspired by films of yesteryear, is wholly original and does its own thing. The other is a remake of a film only 4 years old by the time it got released, and was yet another police procedural when those were at their cinematic apex of the 2000s. Arguably, Insomnia is the best of that crop, but it was still just chasing trends. And it has a few awkward moments that do take the audience out of the picture, and I will explain all that in my actual exhibits.
Thank you. Appearing on behalf of Insomnia is Mr. Maynard Bangs. Please present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. In preparation for this case, I personally haven't slept in nearly 4 days. Powered only by Sunny D and a Mork and Mindy marathon taped off Nick at Night in 1994. Sunny D commercials included. Mr. LePire, on the evening of January 29th, 2024, did you or did you not create a post on the Film Jurors Facebook page, the official Facebook group of the Reels of Justice podcast, patent pending, claiming not only that Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, quote, wasn't that good, but also that Mr. Nolan has, quote, only made 3 good movies? I remind you, you are under oath, Mr. LePire.
At the time that I said that, which I did 1000% say, entirely true, I forgot Insomnia was a Christopher Nolan directed movie. But he did not write it, and that changes everything. Because the band is a bad screenwriter.
All right. Well, would you name for the court those 3 movies if you remember them?
Inception, The Dark Knight, and...
Ironically, the one you can't remember?
Memento.
And on this particular day, when the topic of Nolan's Insomnia was raised, did you in fact say, for Evil Williams, I will take 1 Hour Photo and Death to Smoochie?
Absolutely.
So, when the challenge for the Evil Williams head-to-head was laid down, you had your choice between 1 Hour Photo and Death to Smoochie, did you not?
That is correct.
And you chose 1 Hour Photo!
1 Hour Photo is one of the best thrillers of its era, so absolutely.
Wanted the court to know you could have picked Death to Smoochie, and we could have probably dismissed the case right here. Unfortunately, it seems we find ourselves again at a crossroads, only resolved by these hallowed halls where only truth echoes. And I think you'll find, Mr. LePire, the only thing bouncing today will be the check your mouth wrote that your butt can't cash. I thank you.
Thank you both. Bouncin Bobby LePire, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
My first exhibit will be something in relation to 1 hour photo. I'll take down Insomnia a little bit later. The first thing I wanted to discuss is the use of tone, specifically how the director, Mark Romanok, balances the drama and the comedy and the tension throughout the film. Oftentimes, it can be very difficult for a filmmaker to do all that, so it feels like the comedy is intruding on the drama, or the drama makes the comedy less funny, or anything like that. Here, though, the director, who also wrote the film, really masterfully uses everything to leverage each part. So the drama adds into that uneasy, unspoken tension, especially during the first part of the movie, where the Yorkin family, the family at the center of Cy, the Robin Williams character's sort of obsession, are just giving each other these little glances that seem not quite right, but they still, we, the audience, still believe they're a really relatively happy, normal family. And then just the way certain scenes will switch from intense or more dramatic to something a little more lighthearted or creepy is just great. The best examples I have of this is Cy taking the last role, the last picture on that roll to finish up very early in the film, when Connie Nielsen's character, Natalie, takes it to him. And this is our first introduction to the Yorkin family. The way he takes this photo, just very kind of friendly, very nonchalant, but like the excitement he got just before that, seeing them and coming out and personally taking care of them and upgrading their photos to a different size for free and all this stuff. Like, it's those little moments, those little touches throughout that just build and build to make everything uneasy until everything explodes later in the film.
I would like to, Mr. Mann, would you like the chance to respond to the tones of 1 hour photo?
I think there is tension in the film, but I mean, a lot of his behavior goes so ignored for so long. I mean, by both his victims and by people around him, that it's not all the time believable. I'm pretty sure he would have been fired a lot sooner than he had. I know that the movie has to happen. But I do think I don't think there's as much comedy. I think it leans a little away from comedy, but I do think there's tension. Now, on Insomnia's side, you've got tons of great tone. Not only do you have all the tension being built of, will Al Pacino's character Will Dormer get caught for possibly killing his partner intentionally? Is he going to be able to catch Robin Williams, or are they both going to go down? I think there is a lot of tension that has grown throughout Insomnia too. So as far as, balancing, there's not a lot of humor in Insomnia. The couple of big laughs are there. They relieve the tension well, the two thumbs joke and a couple of the other ones. But for the most part, it's a pretty serious movie.
All right, Mr. LePire, you may continue.
Beyond that, the cinematography really exploits something Sergio Leone did really, really well in his spaghetti westerns, and that's only showing you things very, very deliberately, where famously people in The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, our three characters stumble across a fort out in the middle of the desert. Theoretically, they would have seen that miles away and just get bigger and bigger as it goes. As it's presented in the movie, if it's not on camera, they don't see it. Same thing here. And so there's a reveal fairly early on. Cy goes home after eating dinner at a diner, and we just see him watching TV, and the camera slowly pans over to the left, showing his nightstand. On the nightstand are a bunch of pictures, but not of his family, of the Yorkins. And for people who haven't seen the movie listening, it should be clarified, he's not related to them whatsoever. He's just their 1 hour photo tech guy at some sort of like Walmart kind of a chain. Um, and you don't know he has all these photos until that moment. And that makes this very mundane slice of life moment just get that much like creepier. And then later on, the full reveal of his obsession with them and how picture perfect their life is, because all he knows them through is pictures, is revealed. And that's when tension and everything kind of explodes into a more crazy momentum.
I'd love to talk about cinematography. The thing I didn't like about 1 hour photo is a lot of it takes place in this big box store. So you get the oppressive fluorescent lights of the box store. But ultimately, the big box store has really nothing to do with the movie. Like, it's not really a toxic influence on Cy. Like, he doesn't behave the way he does because he works in a big box store. It turns out to be something more from his childhood. So basically, the box store is a setting that's thrown in simply because it's trendy. If we want to talk about, things being done just because they're trendy. Cinematography.
Objection? How is a big box store trendy in a cinematic landscape?
Taking digs at big box stores are trendy. It's what I think a filmmaker without a lot to say would include in a story.
I'm curious what you think they're saying about big box stores in this movie.
What are they saying about big box
I'm asking you.
Movie? I don't think they're saying anything about big box stores in this movie. So
not
I wonder
trendy.
why
it's just a setting where a 1 hour photo place would live.
No, not necessarily, and certainly not necessarily a good 1 hour photo place like this guy's. But the point is that using it as a setting in order to slant it as oppressive or suffocating is a very trendy move. Something that I think they would have done in the early 2000s. I do also want to mention,
but you just said they don't do that, so they actually are skewing trends.
No, they do that.
Then yes. What are they saying about it?
Absolutely nothing. They're throwing it into their movie because it's trendy. Back on the topic of cinematography, Insomnia cinematography, that cinematographer, Wally Pfister, I hope that's the way it's pronounced because that's the way I'm pronouncing it. But working with Nolan again from Memento, would go on to work with Nolan all the way to Dark Knight Rises. So Memento, he also worked on Inception. He also worked on The Dark Knight. So coincidentally, some of the movies that were mentioned that were good. All the landscapes they get of Alaska that were shot on location, like throughout the opening credits, are totally gorgeous.
So what is he saying about Alaska, Maynard?
What they're saying about Alaska, it's apparently very easy to get away with crime up there because there's not a lot of overhead.
And the sun never sets. All right. Bobby, would you like to redirect anything Maynard just said or move on to another point?
I'm still not sure I understand the point he was making about the trend of big box stores, to be honest, but I don't need him to repeat it because I think I'll just be further confused. As what he's saying about Insomnia and its cinematography, the
Wally
movie
Pfister.
looks by Wally while he's fisting me. Got it.
If we all say Pfister, then we're all in the clear.
No, Insomnia looks really good. Its cinematography is lovely. Visually speaking, Christopher Nolan is a very good director in terms of that. My issues with his movies tend to come down to writing, which is why when I learned he didn't write this movie, I was like, oh, okay. And full disclosure, having watched it for this case, for maybe only the second or third time ever, it was way better than I remembered. But it did have some issues that I'm like, I can easily, I think, point those out and hopefully win the case. But either way, I think sorry, I'm getting off topic.
No, it's okay.
About the cinematography.
Would you like to move on to some of those points about Insomnia?
Sure.
All right.
First up in Insomnia is while Pacino and Robin Williams are really fantastic, some of the other actors are less good. More to the fact, Hilary Swank is entirely miscast here. Her eagerness and earnestness to meet Dormer and Eckhart, the Martin Donovan and Al Pacino characters, detectives from LA coming in, feels so forced and out of place. It's not believable whatsoever in the first 10-15 minutes of the movie or so. It's meant to be like, I'm a big fan, yeah, and it comes off like she's never interacted with people she's a fan of in her life. It's just very weird and awkward, and that hurts the chemistry between her and Al Pacino as actors, and the movie never fully recovers from that. Admittedly, later on she gets a little bit better, but I still never fully bought her as her character.
I think as a resident of Alaska, for her entire life, she probably has never met any of her heroes and probably doesn't know how to behave
Or
in
any
front
people,
of them.
period.
Also, I don't think their chemistry is supposed to be distance. Pacino's keeping her at an arm's distance because she's too eager to know details about the case. So they're supposed to be a little alienated from each other.
Oh, absolutely. I don't buy because of this distance that is created not from him intentionally, but from her, from Hilary Swank not selling me on her like puppy dogness of the character. I don't buy the ending turn where she's willing to like become slightly corrupt to do what's actually just, as opposed to what's legally just, which is one of the arcs the movie is definitely playing with throughout.
Well, I'll respond to first in defense of Hilary Swank, because this is Hilary Swank at her swankiest. All right, this is just a few years after she won Best Oscar for Boys Don't Cry, and a few years before she won it again for $1 Million Baby. So this is that sweet spot, that sweet swank spot right in the middle. She's at peak swank, full pomp, and as far as letting Dormer go, but then she can't. She's the character we're meant to identify with. Dormer is more morally ambiguous.
Absolutely. I'm not saying we identify with Dormer at all. Do not take that from what I'm saying.
I think the only way for it to end is for her to, I mean, he's going to die anyway, is for her to at least complete the case. And there's no reason to believe that even after this, the shooting of Hap isn't found accidental. I don't think Internal Affairs is going to go rip up all of Pacino's cases now anyway, just, no matter what her report says.
Oh, no, I'm totally on board with you on that. But the arc is she's meant to idolize this cop who maybe does a few things that are more under the table, not by the books, in order to get a verdict he knows is right. And her seeing how that might actually be a good thing at times, but it also means you open yourself up to all these other things that the Pacino character is dealing with throughout the entire movie. Feelings of guilt, the burden that sort of thing weighs on you. People within your department, internal affairs especially, breathing down your neck, making things harder for you. That arc is what those two are meant to be playing at. And yes, he's keeping her at a distance. But what's keeping me as a viewer at a distance is how Hilary Swank is never that character. I'm not seeing Ellie Burmer, what was her name? Sorry.
Burke.
I don't know. Just keep calling her Hilary Swank at this point.
The Hilary Swank character. I'm just seeing Hilary Swank as a cop. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess. I'll redirect here then with the supporting cast of 1 Hour Photo. Because apart from Williams, the rest of the cast is kind of forgettable. You got Gary Cole. Speaking of typecasting, he's playing another bad boss. This one not nearly as memorable.
Objection, he is not a bad boss. He's very reasonable and chill until Cy absolutely crosses the line. In his most famous role, Office Space, he's a neglectful, semi-abusive douchebag. Here, he's actually very reasonable and tries to be calm and talk to him in a rational way until things go too far.
Not from Cy's perspective. Cy's perspective, which we're following the movie from, he's rather oppressive. He watches Cy too much. He competes with Cy for authority, especially around Cy's positions.
And Cy is a mentally unhinged, obsessive douchebag
who we are following in the movie.
Who we're following.
Identify with.
Yes, but we're not. No. We're meant to follow him. Identify with. No, we're meant to understand him. Those are two different things.
We'll touch on that maybe later. But to me, the casting of Gary Cole is weird because I think we are meant, because it's Gary Cole, we're meant to not like him. Sorry, Gary Cole's just he's instantly unlikable and dislikable in like every movie he's in. And so when you make him the boss,
disagree there.
We're supposed to not like the guy. And ultimately, his behavior is correct because Sai is dangerous. And so he is making the right calls. So I think it's weird that they chose
throughout
that
the movie. Bill Owens, the Gary Cole character, named after a famous photographer, as a lot of the side characters in 1 Hour Photo are, is shown to be reasonable. He, asks very basic questions. He does not chew out or yell at Sai after Sai blows up at the.
I'm not saying he does.
You're saying he's a bad boss. The movie does not present him as a bad boss at all.
I'm saying Sai sees him as a bad boss in the film.
Yes, Sai sees him because Sai is mentally unhinged.
And we follow him.
We follow him. We do not take his point of view, though. Those are two very important things. No. The movie constantly shows us when he's in reality versus when he's in his dream state. So, like, living with himself.
Movie with one of his delusions.
We do to so us, the audience, can see what he's thinking. That's different than his point of view. That's entirely different. It's ending with showing us what he's thinking. The movie never wants us to identify with him as some sort of defeated person pushed to this. He's just always mentally unhinged from the time we meet him until the end.
But and then on top of that, Connie Nielsen, Michael Vartan, neither one really does anything that anyone else couldn't do. Certainly neither is at peak swank. And
I do agree that they could be replaced with decent, capable actors. They're not bad at movies at all, but you could replace the police chief, Paul Dooley in Insomnia. You could replace half that police force with anybody else, and what would happen?
Not the two thumbs guy. Only he could knock that line out. And don't forget the bad kid actor in your movie too, Bobby, because I know you love those. So if you're going to criticize the bad kids in Babadook and Skinamarink, you can't give this kid a pass.
Bobby, I would like to hear your thoughts on this kid.
I think he actually does a really good job. The actor's name is Dylan Smith, and the scene.
That's very close to my name. We're going to allow it.
The scene where Sai randomly shows up at his soccer practice, and the coach asks him, his character Dylan, if he's doing well, because the coach sees him talking to some potentially random stranger guy. And he goes, yeah, I'm okay, or whatever his reply is. It's so genuine. And the way he doesn't accept the Neon Genesis Evangelion toy being presented, he's really feels like a child just trapped, knowing his parents are tiptoeing around each other and therefore not paying as much attention as he would like to them. And seeing this older man try to be nice to him, but knowing like if he does this, he'll be in trouble. I thought he was very believable in most scenes. There is a scene early on that I think he's not the best in, admittedly, but for most of the movie, I think he's pretty good.
All right. So, Bobby, any other points you'd like to bring up here, either in favor of 1 Hour Photo or against Insomnia?
Let's see. Outside of some of the actors already cast, Robin Williams is Sai. Sai is not Robin Williams, and I think it's a very important distinction to make. Like, if you're watching an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, no matter what he's named, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. So this big, hulking, big-in-life guy, maybe does some one-liners, and that's fine. You go to Arnold Schwarzenegger for that. And for Robin Williams to play a villain like this, and yes, she's also a villain in Insomnia, but they came out in the same year, so this is still relatively new for people. To so easily slide into such a role and not go over the top or manic with it, I wouldn't say it's a subdued performance. He's not exactly like quiet or like low energy, but it is subdued in. When you think of Robin Williams, at least his comedy, you can think of high energy, big moments like in Mrs. Doubtfire or his voicing the genie in Aladdin. Here, though, he doesn't really do those things he's associated with, and so he just gets lost in the role entirely. And it's a beautiful, beautiful performance in that regard. Beyond that, the last few things on Insomnia, I mentioned it's chasing trends. Along Came a Spider hit theaters in 2001. City by the Sea, another police procedural starring Robert De Niro, was released in 2002 alongside Narc and Dark Blue. Suspect Zero was 2 years later in 2004. This cinematic era just had a glut of police procedurals for some reason, and for all its greatness, it might be the best. Insomnia could very well be the best of all of these. I would have to rewatch every single one to know that. Was there a compelling need to remake a Swedish film that's not even a half? Oh, my bad. Norwegian film, not even a half decade old yet. Beyond building on this trend.
So I'll respond to the remake.
Well, real quick though, Bobby, were you resting on that point though?
I have one more point after this.
Yeah, so I'll respond to that. So it is a remake. I do want to state that the director of the original film, Eric Skilbjarg, said the remake is, quote, such a well-crafted, smart film and had a really good director handling it. As a remake, I think it did really well, and it doesn't hurt any original if a remake is done well. That's from the director. Now, let's talk about some of the improvements this remake makes, though. First, in the original, the partner that gets shot is totally innocent. There is no hostility between him and the lead detective. The shooting is just a complete accident. And the guilt for the detective only stems from the cover-up, which is unnecessary because he could have simply just told the truth, explained it was an accident, and could have avoided all the complications. So in the remake, Pacino knows no one will believe it was an accident because he's had public shouting matches with Hap. He has motivation. Everyone will think he did it on purpose. Even he kind of thinks he does. That's why he has to cover it up. That's a layer this film adds that the original does not. And I feel like that lack of motivation for the cover-up is a weakness that the first has. Also, the Swank analogy in the original, who finds out that the cop did it, she chooses to let him go at the end, as Swank tries to do here. The difference is in the Norwegian one, the detective lets her, and he leaves town scot-free, except for his guilt and his insomnia. So in the remake, the act of sacrificing himself, Al Pacino, to sacrifice himself to take down Finch, and particularly to save Ellie, Hilary Swank, Pacino gets that act of redemption that we as Americans need in our films. Like this past transgression, his guilt relieved. He's able to sleep in the end. So, did it need to be remade? Yes, because we had to put it in English because people ain't reading it. These are changes that they have made that I think is an improvement upon it. I think in your boy, you're talking about Ebert. I think he even said in the review that not so much a remake, but a commentary on or building upon of the original film.
He compared it to a remounting of a good play.
Nice. Sweet.
Why are you guys citing Ebert in my courtroom? Let's keep moving on, please.
Well, ultimately, the topic of the 97 film 2 is moot because it's not 97's Insomnia versus 2002's Insomnia. It's 1 Hour Photo versus Insomnia.
All right. So, Bobby, I believe you said you had one or two other points you'd like
I have 2 points against Insomnia, and it's sort of all under one umbrella that are just like these weird moments that take you out of the picture. One happens very early on. Hilary Swank's character picks up Dormer and Eckhart from their plane, and she's going to take them to the lodge. They say, let's go to the police station. There, they meet the chief, Paul Dooley's character. The chief asks how long it's been seeing each other. Pacino says 7 years. Eckhart instantly corrects Pacino, saying 8. The chief, however, responds, 7? I must be getting old. I rewound this scene. I've watched it 4 times to make sure I got the order of this right. He's still saying 7, even though it was just corrected. And it's not like Eckhart is saying it as the chief is talking. So it's like, overlapping dialogue. It's a cut to Martin Donovan, the actor playing Eckhart, saying 8, then cutting back to the medium shot of everybody in that chief's office.
Sheriff ignoring him.
Ignoring him entirely, and no other point.
Intentionally, because
he's not ignoring him at any other point in the movie.
He is.
It doesn't make any sense.
With Pacino, and they don't like Hap.
They are friends with Pacino. He
especially
doesn't
knowing
know
an editor.
anything about Hap going on right now.
You think Pacino has not been on the phone talking to this guy before he came up to Alaska? Oh,
They
been
were
talking. They're
sent
old
here.
friends.
They were sent here by somebody else entirely. It's implied they didn't talk at all until this moment.
You think that he just stepped off the plane? Oh, big surprise! It's Will Dormer, my old
No,
buddy. No, he said
No. The field office of LA or whatever department of law enforcement would handle that would have let him know these other people are coming. This is them catching up after a long time for the first time. If they had been talking this entire time, this conversation wouldn't be happening.
I don't know if we talk over recordings, but when we see each other in person, it's different and it's a big hug. Even if we just, even if we just talked a second ago.
I agree with you up to a certain point, but this conversation is about them. It's about them.
This is not a mistake.
Re-meeting for the first time, and at no other point is Eckhart ignored by the police chief. So even if it is what you say, it's still a moment that just serves no purpose. Because either those scenes got cut or were rewritten or whatever. Beyond that, when Dormer figures out where Finch, the Robin Williams character, lives, he breaks into the apartment. Robin Williams is coming home. He realizes, runs away. But shortly after that, he realizes which person broke into the apartment. He realizes that it was, in fact, Dormer, whom he's kind of blackmailing, for lack of a better term, and he still runs away only for one of the next scenes, not the very next scene, but one of the next scenes to be them meeting and talking. Why does he run away here? Once he realizes who broke into his apartment. It makes no sense. It pads out the movie a little bit, and it doesn't really makes sense with what the character says he wants out of Al Pacino's character. And with that, I rest.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. LePire. Mr. Bangs, you may present any exhibits you have in defense of Insomnia or against 1 Hour Photo.
Sure. Yeah. I'd like to talk about the topic of off-type casting. That's ultimately what we're talking about when we talk about evil Robin Williams, right? It's this off-type casting. Although, and I will give 1 Hour Photo its due, it did cast Williams first, but it can't take full credit for evil Robin Williams. Let's not forget that Williams' big breakout was as the alien Mork in a guest appearance on Happy Days, where he tries to abduct Richie Cunningham. It doesn't get any more evil than abducting Richie Cunningham. But let's talk about these characters and the supposed off-type casting. 1 Hour Photo Cy is a loner. He's a bit of a creep, especially in regards to his voyeurism. However, the film casts him ultimately as sympathetic, whatever Bobby says. It not only suggests his behavior is the result of physical abuse, likely of a sexual nature at the hands of his father, but it goes out of its way to establish that he doesn't physically harm anyone. This is a plot point that hasn't aged as well. The film casts Cy's crime as less egregious because violence isn't directly involved. But he still holds two people at knife point and forces them to commit humiliating and violating acts. Yet the movie winks at you and says, he didn't really take any pictures. He's not that bad. He's misunderstood. And the film's point is that Cy, this maladjusted social deviant, is misunderstood. We must come to learn to understand this type if we're to deal with them. Now, casting Williams is ideal here if you want this creepy character to remain endearing and sympathetic. The likability of the performer Williams bolsters the likability of his character Cy. Therefore, you can never completely turn on Cy because you can never completely turn on Williams. So, as far as being against type, Cy is still using Williams' type to its advantage and leverage. Let's counter that to the killer Insomnia, Walter Finch, because he is in fact a killer. Finch is irredeemable. He kills in cold blood. He kills without conscience or remorse. You are not meant to like Finch whatsoever. He's
Objection. Throughout the movie, Finch states that it was an accident. He's not a murderer. He's never murdered anybody else.
And
this was a complete act of heinous killing of passion for the entire time. The movie Insomnia spends way more time trying to make us understand Finch than anything in 1 Hour Photo about Cy. Psy, yeah, it's implied that there was all this trauma of a sexual nature and stuff, but Psy views what he did because it was nonviolent as being more okay. But we
Mhm.
are still left with seeing the devastation that actually accompanied that, with the lady Will's having an affair with left in the bathtub, just sobbing, unresponsive to the cop who comes in to help her out. And when Will comes in at the very end, Jake's the one who's like excited to see his dad, says something like "Hi, Dad," or just says "Dad" and gives him a hug. Natalie and Will don't say anything to each other. That devastation, even though it's not as violent, and yeah, his pictures aren't of the acts he made these people do, is still very much there, and that trauma is still very much a part of them. Whereas in Insomnia, um, there's so much time spent with the Robin Williams character once he's introduced, like 30 whatever minutes into the movie. That's him explaining how this happened and why this happened. And there's never any hint of him lying about how many people he's killed or that it wasn't an accident. That is reading into something that just isn't there.
No, not at all. They don't initially tell you it, but Al Pacino tells him outright to his face, and that's when the shoe drops. That's when you know exactly how bad Robin Williams is. It took you 15 minutes to beat Kay Connell to death. You know, that's not an accident. Pacino knew it the whole time. The movie doesn't tell us till a bit later in. I think that's when the shoe drops and you lose Williams and you're like, this is a different guy. I don't like this guy at all. He might have been a little bit cuter earlier, but I didn't know anything about him. So my point is, you're not meant to like Finch whatsoever by the end of the movie. He's not even really meant to be amusing or cute. It's much more against type for Williams because you now have to jettison your fondness for Williams to completely lose him in Finch, and he succeeds. So especially when, like I said, when you hear the grisly details of the murders he commits, see the way he keeps trophies. He still has Kay's dress at the end. And he could have jettisoned it and hit it. It was going to get him caught, but he cannot let it go. That's how far gone he is. So this is a Williams we have never seen before. Because he goes all the way to the edge and past it, off it. He's not misunderstood. He's not ultimately a victim like Psy. He's a craven, cowardly killer. The movie casts Psy as the victim, which is why in the end he gets a whole speech explaining why he did it. The detective looks him right in the eyes and says, well, I think I understand now. We don't see him go to jail. We don't see him get any kind of comeuppance. He gets to sit comfortably in the
interrogation room, clearly about to be arrested and go to jail.
He is not going to go to jail. He's going to get a day in court, but it's going to be his first warning. He's getting left off. He's sleeping home tonight.
This is objection to all of this. This is pure conjecture on the lawyer's part. Objection.
I'm going to sustain that. We don't know what happened at the end of the movie because the movie ends.
We know how laws work, and if he just holding people at knife point will not get you any kind of long stay in jail.
But that's not the only thing he's guilty of.
What else has he done?
This entire thing.
That's going to get him a restraining order. This dude's not going to jail for any substantial time.
But
not at all.
It is stalking of one of the people he held at knife point. That is more to it. And again,
they don't even have any pictures to prove
pure conjecture.
I don't think it's conjecture at all. The film
is absolutely by the definition of conjecture. It is conjecture.
The film is casting his crime as less than.
I disagree because again, you think Psy is some sort of likable person. Psy is just the person we're following.
The
Psy
film
is not
wants
likable.
you to like him. The film wants you to like him for sure.
Psy, they want you to understand him. They don't want you to like him. There's a huge difference.
The director, when talking about casting him, this is what he thinks of Psy. In 2002, in his interview with BBC, Romanek said Williams has played a lot of loners and obsessives, a lot of socially maladjusted people, and a lot of academics and people who are defined by the profession. He thinks Psy, quote, takes all the things he has been exploring in the dramatic and in some of his comedic roles and crystallizes them. So he's saying he sees Psy as this loner, this obsessive, this socially maladjusted person that ultimately Williams has been his whole time, right? So it's all about crystallizing that likability in the other that Williams has been doing.
Disagree in part because one of the inspirations for this movie is Taxi Driver, and there's no way you're going to tell me that De Niro's character in Taxi Driver is meant to be likable.
Yes, absolutely. He saves a
No.
prostitute and kills a bunch of pimps. You like what? Like, of course he's the hero of the movie. He
No,
saved a child prostitute.
The anti-hero. There's a difference.
No, he never hurts anyone. He never hurts a single innocent person. Whereas Psy does, but he never hurts a single innocent person. He kills child kidnappers. Your Honor, I'm resting on being offended by child kidnapping, and that's what I'm saying. If you like child kidnapping, vote for Bobby.
Okay. Are you seriously resting there, Mr. Banks?
I'm resting, yeah.
All right, thank you. All sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. LePire, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Insomnia boasts intense movie directing and two amazing performances, Pacino and Williams. But some dialogue hiccups and a miscast wank hold it back from being great, as does a few weird plot holes that only pads everything out. Plus, it's just one of several cop thrillers released in just 2002. 1 Hour Photo is unpredictable because of how Williams plays the character. It's original, though it is taking inspiration from the films of yesteryear, and every cast member hits their marks. Psy isn't Robin Williams. Robin Williams is Psy, and that distinction gives the movie a sense of dread from the beginning to the end.
Thank you. Mr. Bangs, please present your closing argument.
1 hour photo. This is my closing stated. Not as good as Insomnia. That's what we just debated. So when you go inside of that little jury room, you better vote for my much better fucking film. I cannot think of more words to rhyme with fucking film. So go. Hey, nanu, nanu, na, nanu, nanu. This is my closing stated. Nanu. Nanu, 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 nanu. This is my closing stated.
Oh,
poor
man,
microphone.
The real for best musical closing is getting hot already. Thank you all, members of the jury, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, and Mr. What Has Two Thumbs and Loves Robin Williams movies, Ryan Luis Rodriguez. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine which film is the superior movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Right this way. You know, the word on the street is my whole personality was just an improv done by Robin Williams on Late Night.
This man's got a point.
He does. All right, fun one. I actually have not seen 1 Hour Photo before this. I had seen Insomnia. They are very different films, only really comparable by the fact that Robin Williams is in them. I think Robin Williams is a bit more fun and watchable in 1 Hour Photo, but the story on a whole in Insomnia pulls me a bit more. Ryan, what did you think about the cases?
It's an interesting twofer because I actually saw both of these movies on opening day in the theater, which means that I had to sneak into 1 Hour Photo because I was not yet 17 years old. And my mom took me to go see Insomnia. What a great night that was. I love Insomnia. I think it's amazing. I mean, I'm a big Nolan fan. Bobby and I differ on that. I think we agree on Tenet, but I think we differ on Nolan in general. But I'm a big Nolan proponent, and this really is the movie that stakes out the career that he would have. Because without this movie, you don't get Batman Begins, which is really the start of his supremacy, and then now whatever he is now, Academy Award winner. But I think that what we have in this case today is a good movie versus a great movie, and I would put 1 Hour Photo as good. I didn't remember practically anything from it aside from the moment in which he holds Michael Vartan at knife point and has his mistress put her mouth on him, I guess is the polite way of saying it. I remember that distinctly in my mind, but remembered really nothing else. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised by the rest of the film, but I think that there's there's this ineffable quality to Insomnia that I can't possibly look at it as inferior to 1 Hour Photo.
Well, that's really
like a walk-in
interesting.
already.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I thought that we had two very strong cases today, and obviously you're gonna really want to look at what Williams brings to the table. But both guys also mentioned things like the cinematography and the
And supporting
story,
cast.
yeah, and supporting cast. You know, like I don't think either supporting cast was particularly strong. I do think this kid actor was better than in 1 Hour Photo. He was better than some other kid actors, and exactly for the scenes that Bobby pointed out, like his natural reaction at like in the soccer scene. I had seen these movies when they were contemporary back in 2002, and I had not watched them again until very recently. And I was actually really struck by how much I enjoyed 1 Hour Photo, because I remember kind of not liking it very much. And I just remember like thinking like, oh, this is actually really, really good. And it's just interesting because it's of a time that just doesn't exist anymore. There are no more 1 Hour Photos. I mean, not like that. You could still drop off the film at
David Fincher
CBS
still makes these movies regularly, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
not. It used to be a prime thing to get in the theater. Now it's something you'd see on Netflix.
Well,
So,
question for both of you, since you both saw them at the time, which one of the two has stuck with you the most throughout the years?
Oh, Insomnia. I come back to Insomnia every couple years, and I'm always taken with how formally precise it is, and how you can really see the ideas that he likes to play with in terms of chronology and in terms of the aesthetics, that it's a very formative film for him.
yeah, for me though, Ben, to answer your question, honestly, neither. You know, neither one really pops up in my head very much. I'm kind of like actually with Bobby. If someone was like named the best Nolan movies, I would forget that Insomnia was a Nolan movie. But if you reminded me, then I would throw it on the list, right? I would say like,
too, yeah.
You know, I would say like the Prestige, and I don't know. Maybe
Save
I just don't
that
like
thought
Nolan
on the
movies that much.
Prestige that might be coming up later.
Who knows? So anyway, I do think case to case that Bobby made some very, very strong arguments. I really liked the way he was dialed in and kind of framed the debate, you know. And so because of the way he was able to frame it and the focus on Robin Williams, I'm actually going to do something interesting and give it to 1 Hour Photo. So I'll lock in first.
Oh, Ryan, you gonna make it interesting for me, or?
Ooh, am I? Yeah, let's see. Yes, of course I am. I'm an Insomnia head. I'm an Insomniac, baby. So, yeah, I'll go Insomnia.
All right. Well, for me, before I forget, Bobby Skinamarink, we did ranked choice voting. I voted for it last. I have no idea why these guys put it ahead of Shutter Island.
It's
will never
not
understand.
my fault. You have no imagination, Ben. I keep telling you this.
Skinamarink is better than people think it is, but it's not one of the better films we've reviewed that last year. So there's
Could have been the best film we talked about last year. Don't get me started. Please continue.
Bobby talked a bit about like moments that took him out of Insomnia. There's like one that really takes me out of 1 Hour Photo, and that's the fact that the boss like lets him go, but lets him to continue to work for like the rest of the week. And that is like something that never happens. You let someone go to like stop any retaliation, like they're gone, you know, they're not allowed. The keys of the kingdom are revoked. But yeah, that kind of plot contrivance bugs me so much about 1 Hour Photo. Yeah, he would have been fired a long time ago. But I do agree that, I mean, I'm glad I saw it because I wouldn't have seen it otherwise. I think it is a film that is worth seeing. And for that, I'm glad. But Insomnia is just so much better that it says more than 1 Hour Photo does. We follow Robin Williams in 1 Hour Photo. I think we're meant to be a little sympathetic towards him. The fact that Insomnia goes into like that moral ambiguity, how Maynard explained how like the remake kind of makes those themes even better from the original. I didn't know that, but I like that. It's also better cast. So I'm gonna go for Insomnia. So let's go tell that. Is that Judge Handsome? Yeah, I think he was. Let's go tell that handsome judge.
Yeah, that was a good point by Maynard. It's like if it was a completely accidental shooting in the first one, it's like what is this movie even about then? You know? All right. Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of 1 Hour Photo versus Insomnia, we find in favor of Insomnia.
Boo! The verdict is so rendered. Al Pacino will be allowed to opt out of the sequel and be replaced by a DH stand-in on the condition he does not lose his hoo-ha. Court is adjourned.
Tied up in garbage pigs!
This is Grumbly Grumblerson, the angriest reporter from the Gabagool Gazette, reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Maynard Bangs, you completely pulled arguments out of your own ass. How you feeling about this verdict?
Actually, Grumbly, a lot of those were written down. I just said them poorly. It makes me... 1 Hour Photo is a pretty good movie. And I was just thinking about 1 Hour Photo a couple of months before this. So I think we do have two fine films. If this was performance to performance, Williams and 1 Hour Photo wins. If it's Williams to Williams performance. But there's that whole rest of the movie to count. And Insomnia rocks. So, yeah. Hoo-ah! I gotta miss my hoo-ah.
Robert LePire, not feeling quite so bouncy, are ya? You either won or lost this case. I would look it up if I gave a shit. How's the verdict sitting with you?
Really fine. Rewatching Insomnia was a very nice experience because, as stated, I don't care for Christopher Nolan too much, but he didn't write the movie, so many of my issues with his films aren't present, and it was a really moody, intense film. Kept me captivated the entire time. And you know what? I still don't think it's better than 1 Hour Photo, but I definitely don't know that it's any worse. So I'm totally okay with this verdict.
That's all I have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis. God, I hate you all!
Oh, we've got... That's the fourth Nolan movie, then. 4 good movies he's made. Is that what you're saying, Bobby? Is that what you're saying, Bobby?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
On the record. You say it. Using your own words.
Okay. Christopher Nolan has directed 4 good movies.
Thank you.
Emphasis on directed. Right. I like it.
No,
I mean, that's fair. But I'm glad I got an excuse to rewatch both 1 Hour Photo and Insomnia. So
yeah, I was genuinely surprised by rewatching Insomnia because I kind of just got lost in the sea of shuffle of Narc and Dark Blue and City by the Sea and all these other police movies. I forgot it was a Christopher Nolan movie. I remembered it had Robin Williams and remembered it had Al Pacino, but nothing else about this movie stuck with me from when I first saw it. And it really does hold up. It is a really intense watch. And the ending with Al Pacino and Hilary Swank does work very, very well.
Yeah. And one thing I like about Insomnia, too, is like you're really feeling it with Al Pacino. Like it lulls along, then there's these big pops that like snap you out of it, and like you can't rest the way Al Pacino can't rest, and so you're feeling all that tension right at the end of the movie.
Absolutely,
very well done. Very well done.
Yeah, no, it's a great time. And so, Bobby, what have you been up to lately? What's been
watching every Hercules movie ever made.
Kick ass.
Peplum? Awesome.
I love Peplum. You know Peplum. I'm a huge Peplum fan.
So I'm up to the 1963s right now for the Italian production. So I'm going through all those.
Only Hercules. Or like
Massiste
is in there.
So it's a little complicated, right? Even if it wasn't released in the States as a Hercules movie, if the Italian production was intended as a Hercules thing, I count it. So American International Pictures, I believe it was, bought the rights to one of the movies. They called it Goliath and something. I don't have the title in front of me. I forget. Sorry. Yeah. But it was actually everywhere else. It was a Hercules movie. But in North America, because they bought those rights, they made it a sequel to their own version because those kind of movies were super hot at the time. So they renamed the character. Yeah, they renamed the character Goliath, even though it is Hercules. So I count that. But like the Son of Hercules movies, not so much.
Oh, I like the Son of Hercules. I can't remember.
I like them too, but they're not technically Hercules. So that'll probably be next year's stuff. And as far as Makiza and stuff, there are a few of those where they've renamed him Hercules. So I count those as well.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think it's not Odysseus, but I think the Ulysses is some of them.
Ulysses.
Sometimes
Yep.
they're Ulysses.
Yep.
Too.
Yep. There's one that's Hercules, Samson, and Ulysses
And
teaming
Ulysses,
up.
yes. Oh, I know.
Called Hercules, Samson, and Ulysses.
Yeah.
That's the next one. That's literally tomorrow. That's the one I'll be watching if I can find it.
Well, now, Bobby,
So-
why? Why are you doing
Yeah.
this?
What are you doing?
Because I can.
Why do you watch
So-
Charles Bronson?
Last year, my
I didn't know
cinematic
maybe he's writing a piece about it for Film Threat.
No, last year my cinematic experiment was a Disney movie a day for the 100. The year before that was every Jungle Book movie ever made, and before that was every Tarzan movie ever made. It's just because I can, and I want this knowledge in my head for reasons.
I agree.
That's
with
it.
that.
That's the why.
Call me when you get to the Lou Ferrigno movies.
I definitely will. I have a soft spot for how cheesy those movies are.
I like the Italian stuff most.
He
and
throws a bear into outer space
are
and forms a
Italian movies.
constellation.
Yeah,
That movie
that's
is fucking
awesome.
crazy.
Exactly. Beyond that, trying to wind down some film festivals, like wrap up our coverage of that and getting ready for traveling. I'm going to Seattle for their film festival. I'll be a judge there, so I'm prepping for that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
And keeping Mad Brad Gibson in line over there in Film Threat.
Sometimes I don't really talk to the writers or other editors that much. I'm so busy.
Wow.
I go in, I edit things, and unless I need to let them know something, they need to let me know something. I don't interact with them.
I thought we were good friends.
Bobby LePire. You heard
some
it,
of
Brad.
some of them I see in person. A few of them live in New York. So
I don't think Brad does though. So
no, he does not. He's down south.
now we always ask for recommendations of movies that you think people should see. So what is a movie that you think people should see?
I am sorry if this steps on any other toes today, but I bring another thriller starring Robin Williams. Just 2 years after the movies we talked about, 2004, The Final Cut,
Yeah.
directed by Omar Nam. Nam? I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it.
Fist.
Yes,
God damn it.
This is set in not too distant future. Bear in mind, it does star human garbage pail co-star a human garbage pail Jim Caviezel. So that's a blight on the movie, but at the time we didn't know what kind of trash he was.
Jim Caviezel, the guy who adopted disabled kids from China, is a human trash can. The star of Person of Interest. That's what you're going with.
The star of Sound of Freedom, and yes, I'm going with that. I won't get into why here. Maybe when we're done recording, I'll get into why. But yes.
Sure.
As soon as we hit stop, this is going to go on for 1 hour, folks.
Yes. In it, the Robin Williams character, Alan, is a cutter, and in this future, people get these little implants in the brain where their eyeballs record everything they do for their whole life. And then when somebody dies, you can cut their life. And a past trauma, death of a friend has been haunting him forever. And then when he's cutting one, he sees what he thinks is the adult version of this guy he thought died. And this sets him on a path to uncover this. And doing that, he uncovers a conspiracy and is then hunted by people. I'm trying to be kind of vague because the movie hinges a lot on the mystery of how and why and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's
But
cool.
it is really, really thrilling. The ending is great. And Robin Williams, as per always, is just absolutely fantastic. It does also co-star Mira Sorvino, and she gets an amazing scene that, again, I don't want to spoil, but you'll know it when you see it.
Is the twist Robin Williams is chasing himself? Is it like a Minority Report kind of thing?
Is that the
Don't
twist of
answer
Minority
that.
Report? Because I don't remember Minority Report enough to really recall
it's
anything
great.
about that movie. I saw it
That's my next recommendation.
twice,
It's gonna be
maybe?
Minority Report.
Minority Report is excellent, though.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to put it up against some straight to video Tom Cruise movie at the time. No, I'm sorry. Sometimes a cinematic event comes around that's too momentous, too culturally significant, too big to enjoy on the small screen. I was privileged enough to partake in such an event this past weekend when I attended a screening of Immaculate from 2024. Distributed by Neon, who wants to be A24 so bad it hurts, It follows a young American nun, played by Sydney Sweeney, who takes up a residency, is that what it's called? At an Italian convent harboring a dark secret.
Ooh.
The church covering up sinister doings? Talk about straining credulity. The less you know about the rest of the plot, the better, I think, because if there is something to enjoy, it's at least the surprise. As for Sydney Sweeney, she's doing her best. She looks great, and we have to remember she's still a journeyman thespian at this point in her career. You know, I'm sure
With
Miles
her name,
Davis,
like top billing.
I'm sure Miles Davis didn't just pick up the trombone for the first time and toot out Mozart. You know, so we have to give Sydney Sweeney more time, more space to develop her tools as an actor. Now, maybe next time instead of a nun, how about librarian? Or I'm just spitballing here, a cheerleader. Oh no, they did that in Euphoria. Maybe some kind of misunderstanding comedy involving French maids. Made for You, starring Sydney Sweeney, coming soon. You can make it happen, Hollywood. Schlenzo, what have you got for us?
Wait. Great ending. Great ending.
I actually like the movie. I just don't want to give anything away.
No, I'm not saying anything about it either, but what an ending. Oh my
the
God.
The plot, I think,
that.
carries the movie. And Sydney Sweeney's there, so. Schlenzo, what have you got?
Maynard, there are a surprising amount of Robin Williams movies on Tubi to choose from, but I opted for the second best high school football movie of 1986, The Best of Times. The Best of Times stars Williams as a frustrated mid-30s mediocrity that wants one last chance to relive his glory days, but he needs to get star quarterback Kurt Russell on board first. And boy, is this a long walk. Not much football and not much on laughs, but at least Russell and Williams have chemistry. That's a lie. They actually don't. It's pretty painful. I have to imagine they really did not like each other while they were filming this. This is here for Williams completionists only, as I assume there are no Kurt Russell completionists out there. Streaming on Tubi. Support your local mega corporation.
Real quick, I should put out most of the Hercules movies are on Tubi.
Hell yeah.
Oh, I know.
Watch that instead.
Well, he knows.
Yeah, Williams Tubi comes up with like 12. Ferrigno, 15. He didn't even make 15 movies. No.
Big Bun?
My recommendation combines two of the films put on trial today. It was directed by Chris Nolan before he would spend less than $1 billion on a film, and features a mentally ill person with an unhealthy relationship with his camera. One of Bobby's top 3 Nolan films. It's 2000's Memento. And after watching it last year, I gotta say, this thing still holds up. Even knowing the ending, which I won't spoil here, it still holds up. It's one of those films that I have no problem stamping a 10 out of 10 on it because I'm so damn invested in every viewing, nay, every scene of it. Memento is a crime thriller about a man who cannot form long-term memories, and the film, half of which plays in reverse and half of which plays forward, and they kind of shuffle the scenes so it meets up in the middle, which is the climax. This format allows you to see things from his perspective. The character will just find himself in places, not entirely sure what he was doing there. Like he'll be in a bathroom and think, okay, must have wanted to take a shower or something, only to find out it wasn't his room and he was actually waiting for an ambush. It's fantastic. It's a film I'm sure most cinephiles have seen, yet I often run into people who haven't seen it at all. And if you're one of those, I encourage you to go back and take a look at what Nolan could do pre-Oppenheimer. Also, once you've watched it, see the chronological cut, because it's an entirely different and worthwhile experience, because the narrative of how people kind of play him and take advantage of his situation becomes much more pronounced and scary, as is the impact of the cuts, the true cuts climax. The original cut is a superior version, but the chronological cut is worth it for just how different it makes you think about his journey.
Huh. I guess it would be interesting to watch it back the other way. I wonder if you can watch them both at the same time if they sync up in one spot in the middle.
No, because the middle is the end in the right cut.
The middle's the end. It's not a maze, Ben. Ryan, take us on home.
My recommendation this week is actually on topic, a movie that we've actually discussed in this episode, Insomnia from 1997, directed by Eric Skjoldbjerg.
I'm sorry.
Yes, this
Which
is
is
the
Norwegian
very movie
for
that
Fister.
Chrissy Nolan remade, structurally identical, only it's super Norwegian and set in the Arctic Circle. Instead of Al Pacino in the lead, we have Stellan Skarsgård, you know, that guy from 3 out of 4 Thor movies. His character in this version is much more morally compromised than Pacino's character. Just as a for instance, the dead dog in the alleyway that he shoots to dig out the bullet, that dog is alive in this version. Also, he's a super creep. I'm struggling to determine which version I actually prefer. Maybe it's Nolan's, because the original makes me want to take a shower afterwards, scrub the ambiguity and grossness off me, but whatever. If you can handle all that, it's currently streaming where else? Not Tubi, the Criterion Channel.
Boo. What is
Support
it?
your
The
local
Criterion
library?
Channel just Tubi for fancy people? What is this?
That's probably not that far off. I still need to actually see the movie. I only read a synopsis to get my points for it, so I'll need to actually see it. But
The
once I read it, I was like,
endorsing it,
and I was
pretty
like,
good.
the first guy did, like he just covers it up because he can, because like it'll be messy to have to do all that paperwork. I'll just blame the fugitive. Fucking lazies, but that's the Norwegians for you. Freaking Ouija's. No, I'm kidding. I love you, Ouija's. But with that, we are all at a show. But we want to thank our guest, Bouncin Bobby LePire. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you for having me. I love being on here.
I know. I hope you start another fight with us on Facebook.
Oh, don't worry. I plan to.
It's coming. It's coming. We love it. It's whenever I disagree about a movie thing, I go, how could Bobby think that? Wait a minute. I have a place that settles this. Like, I'm one of the few human beings on earth that has a format where it's like, oh, you want to argue about movies? Come on. But always fun and a great excuse to watch these two movies again. So we hope everyone else will join us again as well as the Reels of Justice keep turning.
Count it.
He throws a bear into outer space.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.